Welcome to the Yolo County District Attorney's podcast series, The Chronicles of Justice. Today we're talking about DUI awareness and prevention. DUI is an issue that seems to affect everyone, irrespective of culture, economic class, or really any other factor. It is definitely an issue that affects the work of the DA's office, especially in our work with victims, in prosecuting cases, and in our overall efforts to achieve our mission of achieving justice and enhancing public safety. During today's podcast, we have the perspectives of a specialized DUI prosecutor, Matt De Moura, the chief investigator of the DA's office, Rob Strange, and crime survivor Sonia Rodriguez, who lost her daughter at the hands of someone who chose to drive drunk. Today we start our podcast with Sonia's story.
Okay, and Sonia, speaking of horrific collisions, I wanted to know if you would care to share what happened with your daughter.
Okay, so I always say my story, but I hate saying story because it sounds like, something on the news or just something that happened to somebody else. But unfortunately, it is my story. In 2008, it was Halloween Day, and we were happy because my daughter, at the time, my youngest daughter was 2, and so we were getting ready for Halloween, and we were happy because she got to go trick-or-treating, and holidays used to be like really big in my house. I have a lot of nieces and nephews and 4 kids, and so me and my husband used to dress up for Halloween, and we would take everybody, and so we were really happy that Carmen got to go trick-or-treating this year. So we were getting ready, and Jessica, my daughter, that was 17 at the time, she was going to stay home and pass out candy. And at the last minute, she decided to go with us, and so we all went. We were out just for a couple hours, and she got a phone call from her friend Rosa on the way home, and she wanted to know if she can go out for a little bit. Well, my daughter was 17. I couldn't have asked for a better daughter. She was ultra responsible. I knew I could trust her with Carmen. I knew I can trust her with anything. She always tried to do the right thing. Like in every situation, she tried always to do the right thing. And I remember looking at the clock, and it was just 7:30, and it was Friday. And I told her, okay, that's fine. You can go ahead and go. And so we dropped her off at Rosa's, and I had to work the next day, and so I went home, went to sleep. My husband's the one that stays up if the kids go to their friends or whatever. And the next thing you know, he's waking me up, and he's saying, you need to get up. There's a police officer at your door. And I couldn't think of what it could be. I thought, I don't know, maybe something happened to my mom or my sister. And Jessica's door used to be right down the hall from our door, and I always had a habit of looking under the door to see if the light was on. And I looked, and I didn't see it was on. And then I remember looking at the clock, and it was 10:30, and I thought, okay, she's probably just sleeping. She's already home because her curfew is 10. And I remember going in the living room, and the officer said, "Are you the mother of Jessica Ferrari?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, she's been in a crash." And I fainted. I fainted, and when I came to, they had called an ambulance, and so I wanted to hurry up and go to the hospital, but I had to wait for the ambulance to come and check me out. And when we got to go to the hospital, and oh gosh, the officer was great because I had kids sleeping at home, and he stayed until someone could come and take care of them. And I remember thinking about the every 15-minute program because the week before, my son, who was also in high school, was telling me about it, and he was saying how they involve the students and they involve the parents. And I remember thinking, oh, that's what this is. Because I knew my daughter was so responsible, she would not get in a car with a stranger. Rosa did not have a car. She lived a couple blocks from, me. And I thought that now it makes sense. This is what it is. It's that every 15-minute program, and I don't know why they would choose me. And I was even upset with my son that he wouldn't tell me that they were choosing me. And I just kept telling myself that the whole time. And when I finally got to the hospital, I realized that it wasn't that program, that it was real. the officer there said that my daughter and her friend Rosa were struck by a hit and run. I remember him saying that it was a white SUV and they didn't know who had did it. They didn't catch the driver. And it happened to be just right across the street from Rosa's house. They were on their way to Rosa's house. Her dad had called her just a few minutes before it happened and said, I know Jessica needs to be home soon. Do you need me to pick you up? Where are you guys at? And Rosa told him, oh no, we're right across the street. We're going to be there in a minute. And then that's when it happened. I never, ever thought something like this could happen to me. I just didn't think about it. I mean, my kids are good kids. My daughter, especially my daughter, she was a homebody. She never did anything wrong. I mean, I was really lucky to have her as a daughter. And so I never in a million years thought something like this would happen. And my daughter was hit, and she had multiple fractured bones under her right eye and a punctured lung and head trauma. She had to get rushed to surgery, and her heart stopped on the way to surgery. And they said because her heart stopped, she didn't get oxygen to her brain. So in the state of California, she was declared legally dead. And I remember the doctor telling me, we can keep her on machines as long as you want, and they'll breathe for her, but she'll never breathe on her own. And if she was here, what do you think she would want? And I mean, as a parent, you never want to hear something like that. That is like, I don't even think it enters a person's brain that that might be a decision they have to make for their child. And so I had to make the decision to take her off the machines. And my daughter died on November 3rd, a couple days after the accident, which happens to be my youngest daughter Carmen's birthday. So this has impacted our lives tremendously, and it always will, because every Halloween I think about this, every Christmas I think about this, Carmen's birthday I think about this, Jessica's birthday I think about this, every day when I wake up I think about this, every night when I go to sleep I think about this. I just don't think that people realize how they're affecting other people when they drink and drive. I mean, I don't think you think about it. You just think you're going to go and you're going to have a good time and you're not going to drink too much or you can't make it home. I mean, I've seen people do it, and I've never, ever heard or seen one person say, oh, I can't drive because I'm too drunk. I've never heard that. Everybody thinks they could drive. Everybody thinks they're okay, and the truth is they're not. And you never know, what could happen. You just never know. I mean, it happened in 2008, but it still feels like it was yesterday. It still hurts the same as if it was yesterday. It's still just something that won't go away. All my nieces and nephews, they're older now, so they're in college or having babies or whatever, and I hate it because it's like I'll never know what my daughter would have did. I'll never know if she would have went to college or had a baby or what her future would have been. And my youngest daughter, Carmen, she'll never know her sister, and it's just, it's horrible. I feel really uncomfortable speaking in front of people about it, and I'm nervous doing this, but I know how important it is. I know even if you really do just affect one person, I know that it's extremely important. It's very important because it is 100% preventable, absolutely preventable. It wasn't an accident that it happened. It could have been prevented. And I mean, I feel like too, even if you're not, because nobody thinks, oh, I'm going to wake up and, or I'm going to go here and I might kill someone or I might harm someone. You don't think that. But even if you're thinking about yourself, you can go to prison. Well, you will go to prison you can go to prison, all the court costs it's going to be, you're going to have to tell future employers, that you did this. I mean, it's not worth it. There's nothing about it, about having a good time and drinking and driving, that's worth it at all. Like, nothing.
What would it mean to you if the person that did this to your daughter would actually apologize to you?
Oh, I ran into the lady that hit and killed my daughter. She was working at a store, and I told her, are you so-and-so? And she said yes. And I said, oh, you're the lady that hit and killed my daughter in 2008. And she just rang up my stuff and said, okay, thank you, sorry. That was it. And I felt like, what the heck? Like, that is all you have to say after all this time? Because I always wondered, because she was, my age, and she never got in trouble, and I just assumed that she was sorry this whole time, and her lawyers just said, don't say it, don't say sorry, nothing. So I just assumed that's why she never apologized. And I was just extremely shocked to find out that she still was unapologetic. And I happen to have pictures in my car from doing a victim impact panel, and I couldn't let it go. I was so good during the court because I didn't want to mess anything up, and I didn't want, I wanted everything to work out, so she lived a couple blocks from me, and I never went over there as much as I wanted to take my daughter's picture and tell her, look what you did, but I never did. And that day I just sat in my car and I cried, and I thought, no, I just can't let this go. I can't, I can't not say nothing. So I grabbed the pictures from my car, and I went in there, and she had already left the register, but I asked for her, and they called her up, and I said, I want you to see who it was you did this to. I want you to see my daughter had a life. My daughter, I had pictures, like a collage, that I show at the panel, and I told her, she was a real live breathing person. She was my daughter. She had a life. She was going to graduate. And then she just tried to walk away from me into the employee section of her job. But I followed her, and she was just telling me, well, you can't be back here. This is for employees only. But I couldn't let it go. And I told her, well, you're going to let me talk to you. I am going to talk to you. I'm not leaving here until you talk to me. And so then we walked out the front, and I have to say, she did just take it, and she was listening to me. And I told her how I felt like I was at a panel. I told her how it has impacted my life. I told her about my daughter, because I wanted her to realize this is a real life person you did this to. This wasn't just something that happened to you. It wasn't just you had to go to prison. It was a person that used to be here, a good person. And when I was talking to her, it dawned on me, she is never going to be sorry for what she did. She is never going to, I'm never going to hear the apology, or I'm never going to see that she was sorry she did this to my daughter. And so when I realized that, I just had to let it go, and I just realized I'm not going to get that, and that's okay, because I was able to let it out, and I was able to tell her how I felt, and that was more important to me. So, and I'm glad, because I thought about her a lot. I knew when she got out, and I thought about her a whole lot. Like, what is she doing? Does she think about my daughter? Is she sorry? What is her life like now? I thought about her a lot, and I have to say, since that happened, I don't think about her at all. What I do hope, I did tell her, I said, if anything that you got from this, I really hope you don't drink and drive. I really hope you don't anymore. And to me, that's just important. Hopefully she doesn't. Even if she doesn't feel sorry for what she did, I hope she learned her lesson about drinking and driving, because it could happen again. It could happen again, so hopefully she doesn't.
Did the defendant in this case ever show any kind of remorse to you?
Well, I always felt like she had to be sorry. She was a woman. She didn't have kids, but as a woman, as a mother, I place being a mother, very high. That's the most important thing to me, is being a good mom. And she killed my daughter. She killed my daughter. So just to know that she felt bad for what she did, or she wishes she could have changed something, or just to hear, I mean, it was my daughter, just to hear, I'm so sorry for what I did, because I could not imagine doing this to somebody. I could not imagine taking away somebody's loved one. I think I would feel so horrible. Like, I would feel so horrible, and I would let them know how bad I felt and how sorry I was and how I wish I would have made better choices, because really that's all it comes down to, is making better choices to not do this. And I mean, I wish I could say she was sorry, but she wasn't. But at least I got to tell her how I felt, and hopefully if she never thought about it, my daughter's aspect or mine, hopefully she does every now and then.
Sounds like, if nothing else, you gave her something to think on.
Yes.
Something very serious to contemplate, even if she hadn't considered doing it or had prevented herself.
Yes, because
from
she wouldn't look at pictures of my daughter when they would show them in the courtroom, and they even played like a little video, and she wouldn't look at it. When the judge told her, you know, do you want to face the families? Do you have anything to say to them? She wouldn't even apologize then, even though she pled and it wasn't going to help her case. I remember her saying, nope, that's okay. I'll sit right here. I don't have a drinking problem. I just shouldn't have gave my friend a ride home that night. Yeah, she was something else.
I think at some point, everyone ultimately deals with the reality of the wake.
Well, I figured sitting in prison for the amount of time she did, she must have thought about it and she must have been sorry. But then to find out she wasn't, that was like, it blew my mind. But I let it go. So I don't hold that anymore, because I used to think that it would make me feel better if she apologized to me, but it doesn't. I mean, I remember even before, like a day before she got sentenced, I wanted to say, you know, it doesn't matter. She's never done anything wrong. She doesn't deserve to go to prison for 9.5 years. I mean, she's just a regular person that made a mistake. And I felt bad that she had a good life. I mean, she had a very good job, and she, you know, never got in trouble. And I felt bad that now she's going to prison for a stupid mistake. And I remember thinking, like, is it going to matter? It's not going to bring my daughter back. But then to know that she was never apologetic, or, I mean, I don't know. I guess she has to live with herself at night and be able to sleep at night on it.
Okay. And Sonia, if you would like to share, what would you say to Jessica, if she can hear you right now? Would you care to share?
I would just tell her that I love her, and I hope she knows that I couldn't have been prouder of her, and she really was everything I could have hoped for in a daughter. I was lucky to have her as a daughter for as long as I did. I was really lucky.
Well, Sonia, thank you for sharing that, and we're sorry for your loss, and thank you for being brave and telling your story. And I did want to know from Matt briefly the consequences for situations like this and what happened with Sonia, since you said that you specialize in these.
And with DUIs, you know, you have your first time DUI offender who can do, you know, a couple days in jail, will be on probation, and have no alcohol clauses and things like that, and maybe get an interlock device so they can't drive. And then you go to the worst case scenario that Sonia had to go through, and you could be looking at, you can look at a maximum of up to life in prison on a case like this, 15 to life. If it's charged as a second-degree murder or a gross vehicular manslaughter, you can do significant time in prison for that. And a question that someone's asked me before is, like, how do you know what the consequences are going to be? And you tell them, well, don't put yourself in a position to find out what those consequences are.
Right.
And so that way you'll never have to have an answer to that question.
And just to backtrack just a second, Kevin, is so in the case that Sonia described with her daughter's death, in that case, the investigators were able to backtrack. They identified the driver and were able to backtrack the evening that driver had preceding and included, and were able to place that driver at different bars, and they were able to reconstruct what the blood alcohol content of that person likely was at the time of the collision. Ultimately, that driver went to prison for that case. But, again, having drinks, and Sonia talked about never having heard about somebody that's drinking saying anything but, no, I think I'm okay.
Not ever. I've
It's
never
like,
heard anybody.
I think we all want to just turn that on its head and have people think just the opposite of,
Right.
grab a ride from a sober friend instead of even taking the chance. Or now with the, there's so many things available out there now. There's so many
Right.
ride shares, ride sharing
Uber
programs.
is a great one. Uber is great.
all-
It's cheap and
All
quick.
those different things. And there's the traditional taxi, but
Mhm.
usually there's a friend, even if they're not at the same place you are, that has told you repeatedly, hey, if you drink, just give me a call. I don't care what hour of the day. I'll pick you up. I'll make arrangements. Just no reason. There's just no reason.
Okay, and Matt, starting with you, is there, as we're closing up today's conversation about this, and we're in this season right now where we see a spike in DUIs during the holiday season, especially we got New Year's Eve coming up. Is there some advice or a thought that you'd like to leave with listeners?
I think it's, to put it in its simplest terms, is just don't do it. Don't risk it. And just when you're like, oh, I'm okay to drive, that's probably when you should be telling yourself, no, I'm not okay to drive. And so, as Sonia said, everyone thinks they're okay to drive, and why risk it? Just don't. Because, as Sonia pointed out, it's a crime of choice, and as Rob says, it's the most preventable crime out there. And you lose the ability to control whatever happens once you get behind the wheel of a car. So, I just say, you have too much to lose. Everyone has too much to lose, so just don't do it.
Okay, and Sonia, as the mother of a victim, is there something that you would like to leave with our listeners?
Yes, I think that it's really important to make plans before you leave your house even. Make plans on how you're going to get home. That way you have a plan, you stick to it, you will not drink and drive that way. Because, once you're in the moment and you're drinking and you're thinking, oh, I'm fine to go home, or I have to get up the next day, or whatever the case may be, you're just going to do it. You're just going to drink and drive. But if you have a plan set before you leave the house, then you won't have to worry about it. Whether it's calling someone to pick you up, or using a taxi service or Uber, or having a designated driver with you. To me, I think the key is to make a plan before you leave.
And Rob, as we're closing up today's session, is there something, a thought, advice that you'd like to leave our listeners?
Well, Kevin, you started out talking about how the crime of DUI affects all walks of life. Doesn't matter your economic status, culture, none of that matters. It affects all walks of life. Because even if you have never taken a drink in your life, I think about the case Sonia talked about, her very responsible 17-year-old daughter. She didn't go out drinking, but she was definitely affected by DUI. So it's not just about you, it's about everyone else out there. And the reality is, just one time can change lives forever. Just one time. Making the choice one time. Not planning for your evening one time. Not just saying, I shouldn't do this one time. Compromising on what everyone knows and what common sense tells you is the right choice. When people compromise on that just one time, it can change so many lives. So many lives. Forever. And so I weigh that out, and that's a pretty simple equation to say, don't do it. Have a plan. Because, again, just one time of compromising on what we all know is common sense and right can lead to tragedy and devastation beyond what anybody has experienced to that point in their lives. And I don't think there's anybody that wants that to happen to anyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Chronicles of Justice, the podcast of the Yolo County District Attorney's Office. For more information about the Yolo County District Attorney's Office, or for other tips to keep you safe, look us up on the web at yoloda.org Or you can check us out over social media on Facebook at Yolo County District Attorney, over Twitter at YoloDA, YouTube YOLO space DA, or Instagram at YOLO.DA. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you stay safe and have a great new year.